The planet Hanara shimmered under twin suns and the promise of tomorrow until the unyielding shadow of the Grox Collective fell across its fields. The once verdant expanses and meticulously tended orchards, symbols of centuries of peaceful innovation, suddenly became the stage for an unwelcome incursion. In the midst of sudden chaos, residents watched in disbelief as massive, angular vessels descended from the cobalt sky, their hulls glinting with a cold, merciless light. No alarms sounded from distant worlds. Even the storied Galactic Alliance, bound by treaties of neutrality and ancient codes of restraint, remained silent in the face of such aggression. The invasion was swift and overwhelming, leaving Hanara's citizens with only the desperate hope that their long-cherished legacy would not be extinguished without a fight. In a quiet chamber filled with relics of bygone eras, a gallery of long-lost artifacts and carefully preserved scrolls, the memory of a debt was revived. Ambassador Sarah Velnara, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and steely resolve, recalled a time nearly a quarter-century past when Hanara's linguists had deciphered the enigmatic Treaty of Sirius. That breakthrough had averted an imminent war and saved countless lives by revealing a fragile balance hidden within ancient words. Now, as Grox warships circled the horizon like vultures waiting to feast, she understood that the intellectual debt owed to humanity was not an abstract idea, but a tangible lifeline. There was honor in repaying favors of knowledge, and the words that once unlocked peace could again serve as the catalyst for salvation. Without the roar of war engines or the clang of armaments, a different kind of battle was about to unfold. Far from the glittering corridors of interstellar militarism, a small delegation of diplomats prepared to leave Earth, their mission defined not by the promise of destruction, but by the hope of uniting disparate voices in a chorus of resistance. At the forefront was Elias Kane, a man whose eyes had once shone with the curious light of a student eager to absorb every nuance of language and culture under Sarah's careful tutelage. Now, years later, he carried the weight of that heritage in his heart as he set out on a perilous journey. A journey to challenge a collective built on brute force through the gentle yet potent power of words. Elias moved through crowded, impromptu strategy sessions, his every step measured and determined. The diplomats gathered in dimly lit rooms, poring over maps and data logs that chronicled the invasion in stark, unyielding detail. These meetings were punctuated by the soft hum of portable hollow projectors displaying satellite images and intercepted communications, a silent testament to the innovation that defined their era. Among the many reports, one stood out: a series of clandestine leaks from human-funded AI journalists who had risked their own safety by embedding themselves deep within Grox territory. Their digital dossiers, laden with evidence of unspeakable atrocities and systematic repression, painted a portrait of a regime that thrived on fear and control. Every byte of data served as a scalpel, cutting through the veil of secrecy the Grox had draped over their operations. In hushed, urgent exchanges, Elias and his team forged a plan that transcended traditional alliances. They reached out to a network of minor species, worlds that had long felt marginalized by the dominant powers of the galaxy. Within a mere 72 hours, emissaries from 14 neutral species responded to humanity's quiet call for solidarity. Their languages were as diverse as the stars themselves, but the message was unequivocal. An embargo on the Grox trade routes would serve as the sword that cut off their lifeblood. Without these vital conduits, the invaders' supply lines would falter and the economy that underpinned their might would crumble. In dimly lit boardrooms and on holographic screens that glowed like distant nebulae, representatives debated strategy and shared secret nods of understanding, realizing that in unity there was strength far greater than any singular warship or battalion. Amid the diplomatic fervor, memories of past glories and sacrifices wove themselves into the fabric of this renewed struggle. The legacy of the Treaty of Sirius, deciphered by Hanara's brilliant minds 23 years ago, loomed large in every conversation. That historical moment had not been marked by the clashing of plasma cannons or the roar of space fleets, but by the quiet brilliance of a shared understanding, a testament to the power of ideas over iron. Now, that very same spirit was being called upon once more. Every piece of evidence leaked by the autonomous AI, every whispered word of protest among the minor species, added to a growing crescendo of resistance that resonated far beyond the immediate theater of conflict. Elias recalled long hours spent in the archives of his mentor, poring over delicate manuscripts and holographic recordings that spoke of a time when humanity's ingenuity had saved entire civilizations from the brink of war. In those moments of quiet reflection, he absorbed not just facts and figures, but the very essence of a philosophy that prized dialogue over destruction. It was a debt of words, a commitment to peace through intellectual and cultural exchange, that now found its opportunity to reshape destiny. With every meticulously crafted message and every carefully curated data packet, humanity was proving that even in a universe seemingly dominated by lasers and brute force, there existed a power far more enduring. The power of diplomacy, empathy, and shared cultural memory. Days turned into a tense waiting period. The situation on Hanara grew increasingly precarious. The Grox, though masters of intimidation and aggressive posturing, began to falter under the weight of mounting internal and external pressures. Their economy, once buoyed by steady and unquestioned trade routes, started showing signs of strain. Whispers of dissent began to surface among their ranks as supply shortages and logistical nightmares undermined the invaders' confidence. The coalition of voices, built on the trust of minor species and strengthened by humanity's unwavering moral stance, was proving to be an unexpected but potent adversary. Each new piece of evidence, every additional endorsement from a previously neutral world, struck a blow against the Grox's pride. Their grand designs, once seemingly invincible, were being dismantled piece by piece, not by the clamor of battle, but by the steady, persistent force of a united front. In a decisive move that would mark the turning point of this unconventional conflict, a series of high-stakes negotiations were set into motion. In an opulent, though somber, chamber aboard a repurposed diplomatic cruiser, representatives of the embattled coalition and the Grox leadership convened. The air was thick with tension and the unspoken understanding that the future of countless worlds hung in the balance. Every word exchanged carried the weight of history. Every pause a silent testament to the magnitude of the moment. Elias, his voice calm and resolute, articulated a vision where economic might and cultural legacy could serve as instruments of change. The terms were simple yet profound. A complete embargo on all trade routes vital to the Grox, enforced by a coalition united not by shared blood, but by a commitment to preserving peace and cultural diversity. The negotiations, long and arduous, were punctuated by moments of near collapse and unexpected breakthroughs. In the end, the Grox, realizing that their continued aggression would only lead to isolation and economic devastation, chose to withdraw their forces. Their decision was not heralded by triumphant fanfare, but acknowledged with a measured relief that spoke to a profound respect for life and legacy. In the aftermath of the Grox retreat, the battered yet unbowed citizens of Hanara began the painstaking process of rebuilding. Under the careful guidance of their leaders, they transformed grief into a vibrant tapestry of renewal, celebrating the resilience of their culture and the unbreakable bonds of community. Humanity, once known predominantly for its martial prowess, now emerged as a beacon of diplomatic ingenuity, a weaver of alliances that transcended the rigid paradigms of warfare. In quieter moments amid the reconstruction, Ambassador Sarah Velnara sought out Elias away from the public eye. With gentle hands and eyes filled with unspoken gratitude, she presented him with a small, intricately designed device, a holographic archive containing the lost poetry of Hanara. Each verse, each carefully inscribed symbol, was a reminder of a debt repaid not in bloodshed, but in mutual respect and shared cultural heritage. The gift was more than a token. It was a legacy, an eternal testament that words, when wielded with wisdom and compassion, could outgun even the most fearsome of lasers. In the lingering twilight of an era defined by conflict, the echoes of this unprecedented diplomatic gambit resonated across galaxies. The story of Hanara, of the Grox who faltered in the face of a united coalition built on soft power, and of a humanity that chose dialogue over destruction, became a legend whispered in the corridors of power and in the quiet, reflective moments of countless beings. It was a testament to the idea that true strength lay not in the ability to conquer through force, but in the capacity to inspire, unite, and create a legacy of peace. The alliance forged in those transformative days would pave the way for a new galactic order, one where every voice, no matter how small, possessed the power to shape destiny. The lessons learned during those critical hours would guide future generations, reminding them that even in the darkest moments, The spark of hope kindled by the eloquence of words and the strength of shared ideals could illuminate the path to a brighter, more unified future. The archive of Hanara's lost poetry played back in silent holographic loops, and as whispers of the historic diplomatic victory spread through once-forgotten corridors of interstellar governance, the impact of the peaceful rebellion grew. In marketplaces and academies, on ships and in remote outposts, beings recounted the events with a blend of astonishment and admiration. They spoke of the day when economic embargoes and leaked data supplanted the tradition of overwhelming firepower, when the might of lasers was rendered powerless by the quiet resilience of cultural unity. Conversations in dimly lit cantinas and high-tech academic symposiums alike recalled how a debt of knowledge and mutual respect was repaid with an innovative strategy that defied expectations. In every recounting, the narrative remained unchanged. A peaceful planet's legacy was safeguarded not by weapons, but by words, not by brute force, but by the ethical courage of diplomats and the fearless reporting of AI journalists who risked everything for the truth. Deep in the heart of the reconstructed capital of Hanara, where vibrant murals celebrated both past struggles and future promise, elders recounted the pivotal role played by those who had chosen the pen over the sword. In hushed tones that belied the gravity of their memories, they recalled the piercing clarity of Ambassador Sarah Velnara's appeals and the unyielding determination in Elias Kane's eyes as he championed a cause greater than any single nation or species. In community gatherings that stretched into the starry nights, stories emerged of whispered meetings in secret corridors and the subtle art of persuasion that had brought disparate voices into a harmonious chorus against tyranny. The memory of the Grox withdrawal was immortalized in songs and silent tributes alike, each narrative thread a reminder of the power inherent in dialogue and cultural exchange. In the wake of the diplomatic victory, new academies emerged dedicated to the study of interstellar communication and cultural diplomacy. Young scholars, inspired by the historic events, immersed themselves in the study of ancient treaties and alien dialects, believing that the future would require not only advanced technology, but also the nuanced understanding of diverse civilizations. In these halls of learning, the holographic archive of Hanara's lost poetry was revered as both an artifact and a guide, a symbol of the timeless value of words. The archive's verses, interwoven with subtle messages of hope and resilience, serve as lessons for those who believe that intellectual exchange could prevent future conflicts and that every culture, regardless of its military might, possessed the potential to contribute to the galactic mosaic. Elsewhere, in the outer reaches of neutral space where minor species had found refuge and opportunity within the newly forged alliance, community centers became hubs of creative exchange and political discourse. Representatives of once overlooked worlds shared their own cultural treasures, forming a network of mutual support that spanned countless light years. This network, built on the principles of transparency, respect, and shared responsibility, ensured that the voices of even the smallest beings could be heard in the grand narrative of the galaxy. There, under the shimmering glow of distant stars, the legacy of Hanara's peaceful resistance continued to inspire new generations to challenge the status quo and to seek solutions that defied conventional paradigms of conflict. In private moments of introspection, many who had borne witness to the dramatic transformation of galactic politics found themselves pondering the delicate balance between power and responsibility. They questioned whether the tools of war would one day be replaced entirely by the instruments of diplomacy, or whether the eternal tension between force and persuasion would forever shape the destinies of worlds. Yet, in every debate and every quiet reflection, the memory of that fateful chapter served as a constant reminder that true change was possible even in the darkest hours. The narrative of the Grox withdrawal, the coalition of neutral species, and the unyielding resolve of a small group of dedicated diplomats underscored a timeless truth: that in a universe where words could indeed outgun lasers, the strength of human ingenuity lay in its capacity to forge alliances built not on fear, but on hope. As time marched forward and the scars of the past slowly faded into legends, the story of Hanara and its diplomatic gambit assumed a mythic quality in the annals of interstellar history. Generations later, as new challenges emerged and fresh crises tested the mettle of emerging civilizations, the events of that era were revisited in quiet classrooms and bustling forums alike. There was no grand ceremony to celebrate the victory, no elaborate monument erected in its honor. Instead, the legacy lived on in everyday acts of understanding, in the gentle exchange of ideas, and in the resolute commitment to honor old debts through acts of cultural solidarity. The holographic verses of lost poetry continued to play in the background of intergalactic dialogues, a subtle yet persistent reminder that the most enduring legacy was not measured in battles won or territories claimed, but in the quiet triumph of wisdom over warfare. In countless stories passed down from elders to youth, in whispered legends recounted during the long nights of space travel, the saga of that unprecedented diplomatic maneuver remained a beacon of possibility. It was a story of how, when faced with overwhelming odds and an adversary defined by its cruelty, humanity and its allies chose a path of moral clarity and intellectual valor. They demonstrated that the currency of cultural heritage and the power of shared knowledge could dismantle even the most formidable empires of terror. And in that choice, they redefined the very essence of power, transforming it from a tool of domination into a force for liberation, unity, and enduring peace. Thus, as the stars continued to spin in the vast expanse of space, and as new alliances formed in the ever-changing tapestry of the cosmos, the message remained clear and unwavering. The true measure of strength was not in the arsenal of lasers and warships, but in the unyielding spirit of diplomacy, the courage to embrace cultural diversity, and the relentless pursuit of understanding. In every heart that remembered the events on Hanara, in every mind that contemplated the profound lessons of the past, there existed a promise that even in a universe beset by uncertainty and conflict, the gentle power of words would forever be capable of outgunning the cold, impersonal might of lasers. And so, the legacy of that extraordinary chapter endured, echoing softly across the galaxies, an eternal testament to the resilience of hope and the indomitable strength of the human spirit. Every whispered verse, every quiet exchange of ideas, and every act of peaceful resistance that followed served as a living reminder of the day when diplomacy triumphed over domination. As time flowed like a gentle river across the expanse of history, the narrative of Hanara's struggle and the triumphant repayment of a long-forgotten debt remained etched into the collective consciousness of myriad worlds. It was a story that transcended the limitations of language and the boundaries of species, speaking to a fundamental truth that would guide civilizations long into the future. Then the realm of ideas, even the softest of voices held the power to reshape destiny. In that truth lay the promise of a brighter tomorrow, a tomorrow where every word spoken in the name of peace would serve as a bulwark against the forces of tyranny, and where the legacy of those who dared to choose dialogue over destruction would continue to inspire generations yet unborn.